This pattern is fractured Cyprus slate, derived from the island of Cyprus. We were able to capture beautiful textures from indigenous stones from the island of Cyprus with a wide variety of unique textures. We took extreme care with the direction that we ran each of the textures so that when we interlock the tools, 1 against 2 for example, we don't want any matching textures running the same direction. Another interesting feature on this particular tool is the fact that we took the joints and we made them appear as if they're fractured, just as if a brick mason or a stone mason was literally handcrafting the stones to get them to fit, so it looks as if the edges are fractured. It's a very interesting, unique look. This tool is 3'6", and if you were to make a 3'6" by 3'6" square, and then take out a notch, which is 14 inches by 14 inches, is the dimension of this tool. This set includes 8 rigid tools, 1 flexible floppy, which is great for getting up into tight areas, maybe up against a wall or a column, for example. It includes the matching texture with a 2-foot by 2-foot touch-up skin. You get 2 of these. A 1-foot by 1-foot touch-up skin for getting into tight areas, and even these are used on stair risers. And the set also includes the matching touch-up roller, which is great for doing your detail work. Let's go take a look at how this set works. This pattern in particular is a great pattern to learn in sand. I've seen a lot of contractors get very confused on which is the appropriate way to run this texture. And what I mean by that is you'll notice that our notch is facing this way. So for education purposes, let's just assume that this is our driveway, and inside over here is our garage. By running the notch the way that John and Dave are running it, what's happening is getting rid or canceling the line of sight. It forces these tools to run on a diagonal, so when you drive up the driveway, you don't see this row of diagonals. So if we took this pattern and we turned it 90 degrees this way, it would run diagonally right down the direction of your driveway. So this is a great example of learning in sand, especially with a pattern like this. This is our panel for fractured Cyprus slate. We've struck off the concrete and we've done a nice thorough job of bull floating it. We've already floated all the edges and ran the hand edger. And now Dave and Cody are getting ready to apply CH735 color hardener, which represents the color cappuccino. This is a beautiful color. You notice what they always do. They fluff it up by rolling the bucket and then they turn it over, and that loosens the material. If you don't loosen the material before you throw it, it compacts and you don't want it in a big clump. So you need the material very fluffy. We're going to apply 60% of the material on our first shake or our first application. We will then bull float that in, and then we'll come right on behind and apply our remaining 40% coverage. On our panel of fractured Cyprus slate, remember we had just finished applying our 60% color hardener in the cappuccino color. We do have a very windy day, so I use Fritz Pack control finish over the top of our first application of color hardener and let it set for about 5 minutes so it evaporated off. And as you can see, Dave and Cody are working the material in with relative ease. Now, in this instance, Dave is using a magnesium bull float because the surface has a tendency to crust over in the dry wind like we have. So get on it at the right time, consider the use of a little bit of control finish and a magnesium float, and you're good to go. Our next step on our fractured Cyprus slate panel is to put the remaining 40% coverage of our cappuccino color hardener. As a recap, what we've done up until this point, we applied our 60%. The team has bull floated and floated the edges. We've used hand edgers and now it's ready for the remaining 40% of cappuccino. Our remaining 40% of our cappuccino color hardener has been applied to the surface. Dave did mist on a light spray of control finish, and he's now bull floating it in. Remember, one way to check to see if the color hardener is wetting out is to gently place your fingers on the surface and wait 5 to 10 seconds, and you should not only be able to feel moisture being drawn to your fingers, but it should leave little moist prints, which you see there, which is an indicator that the color hardener is wetting out. If it's not wetting out properly, chances are you have a concrete mix design that possibly has a lot of chemical admixtures or more than 2 chemical admixtures, or it's a real windy day. One last tip, keep your plastic clean. Right here, where the color hardener is got up on top, the last thing that you want is right before you stamp a big wind to come up and blow all the powder onto the surface. We've bull floated in all of our cappuccino. We've addressed all of the edges with the hand edger again. Now the next step is we're going to provide an accent color, and it's CH515 Sun-Baked Clay, which is a beautiful color for accenting. Remember, you don't want to streak your accent color. You wouldn't see a streak from stone to stone to stone. So you want just a nice light uniform layer of our accent color. All right, we've just flashed in our sun-baked clay accent on our fractured Cyprus slate. Looks beautiful, looks very organic. Our next step is we're going to broadcast walnut antique powder release. Once again, you're going to get roughly 1,000 square feet per bucket, depending on the weather. If it's real windy, it might require a little bit more. But Dave's just going to use a splash brush and put a nice layer down in a darker contrasting color. And like all the other panels, it's very important to come around with a matching texture skin, which is what John is doing. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to texture out the first 6 to 8 inches in case the stamps overlap on something rigid, like a prior pour, or possibly on the form. If you don't do what John's doing, the antique release never gets pushed down into the surface. So this is a very important step. Our fractured Cyprus slate has a 14-inch by 14-inch notch. Because of this notch, it forces the tools to run on a diagonal. If you remember how we demonstrated in our wet compacted sand, this is a very important tip on which direction to run these tools. If this was our line of sight or our garage in this area, the fact that we're going to run the tools this way means that they're going to be running diagonally across the slab. Whereas if we ran the pattern this way, the diagonals would go down the line of sight of the driveway, and you would see that row of diagonals. So it's very important that you start this tool the proper way, which in this case is going to be right here. This set of tools has a total of 8 unique individual designs. So it's real simple. This was our number 1, Roman numeral 1. We're going to simply put Roman numeral 2 up against this, and so on and so forth, and that way you won't see a repeating pattern. So you can see what's happening here. Because of this notch, the tools aren't running square back and forth. They're actually coming here, then they step up one, the next tool is going to step up again. So that's why you want to run this against your line of sight. Real important. So we're going to go on to our number 3. It's a good idea before you lift the whole tool just to lift one edge up and evaluate it. remember you're looking for the release color. It should lighten up. So go ahead and check areas before you lift the whole thing up. And it looks pretty decent. So you're looking for optimum texture as well as the release color will lighten up. Sometimes if you lift the whole tool up and you determine that you haven't tamped enough texture, you'll get a double stamp line. So let's check it. I'll give that to you. Let's show this. Now notice how the release color is lightened up everywhere. We've got 100% texture, but what you're going to notice right here, we've got a little bit of bleed water, which is not uncommon on a mix design. So it's really important to remedy and fix this right now. If not, it'll get more and more, it'll catch more of the bleed water and you'll start to see the repeating pattern. So Dave's going to broadcast a little on there. He's also going to brush the tool to get rid of that moisture, so that's really important. If you see moisture stick to the bottom of the stamp, go ahead and remedy it right now. What they'll do now is simply place it back in, all the way around. Yep. Step on it, and you've just fixed that problem. All right. Here we are in our fractured Cyprus Slate panel. This pour went absolutely beautiful. We had enough tools to go right over the whole area. We used 1% NCA, non-calcium accelerator. We didn't have to retard this load because we had plenty of stamps to get over this area expeditiously. The guys are now moving the last stamps. Remember, if you have a good detail person, when they lift the stamps, you can actually detail the joints right then. If for whatever reason you're getting behind and you don't detail the same day, make sure you come back the following day and do any detailing with a tinker chisel or a cold chisel. You just don't want to leave any of these squeeze lines between the stamp. So either do it the same day with the matching texture touch-up roller or chisel them the following day. On our fractured Cyprus Slate, we've washed off the remaining powder release and it looks beautiful. As a recap, we used cappuccino color hardener with a light flash of sun-baked clay color hardener, and then we used walnut release. At this point, once the surface was dry, you could actually seal it, check with the manufacturer's specifications as far as the type of sealer that you're using and how much cure time on your concrete needs to happen. And certainly it needs to be 100% dry, no standing water, no dark areas. Make sure it's dry. Again, this is a beautiful pattern to come back and either put a light stain over the entire surface, we call that a stain wash, and then come back and do some individualized random stones. This is a beautiful pattern for that. Hopefully you've enjoyed our chapter on fractured Cyprus Slate. With some additional practice and some good color selections, you can also produce some beautiful stamped concrete work.